Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend John Obolewski. And today, as promised, a special guest. John, how are you today?
Hey, Jim, I'm doing good, and I'm excited to have our mutual friend with us today, Pastor Jim Westheim. Jim, we've been in a series on this idea of staffing your church from within.
Hmm.
And it's great to talk about it conceptually, and I love ideas, and we could talk about the idea part of it for
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah,
But today, I really thought, and Jim, you really kind of gave the impetus. So I'm going to say you thought this up.
Yeah.
It would be great to have somebody who at their church has actually taken this and utilized it and had some amazing results. The proof is always in the outcome, in the pudding, so to speak. And so Jim Westheim, and Jim, I believe you're the executive pastor at Faith Alive Church. I think that's your title, right? Is it
well, my
executive
title
pastor?
changes often, sometimes monthly,
Okay.
but yeah,
Okay.
that's we'll call it that for right now. But I'm sure it'll change again. But
All
yeah,
right. So Jim, welcome to the podcast.
yeah,
Thanks for
it's good to
being
be
with
here.
us today.
It's good to be here.
Yeah. So Jim, tell us a little bit about your background, maybe how you came to Christ, and what you're currently doing, what's your current role, and just from high level at Faith Alive Church in
I
West
accepted
Branch,
Christ
Michigan.
back when I was 5 years old. I've been in the church all my life, been around ministry all my life.
Hmm.
I grew up in the Assemblies of God, went to Bible school, went to college in those directions, got ordained, been serving the Lord for 38 years, full-time ministry. And before coming to Tawa, our West Branch here where I'm at, I was over in East Tawas for 12 years as a lead pastor there. And I'm passionate about where ministry needs to land and helping pastors facilitate ministry. As I served as presbyter, I thoroughly enjoyed that, helping pastors build on their dream and make vision a reality. And Chad asked me to come on a couple of years back, and it's been 8, 9 years now. So boy, time flies. But we work on helping to establish legs on ministry, getting it to move and getting it in the direction we want it to go. And it's been a wonderful thing. We really enjoy it. I serve right now as the Next Steps pastor, and I work right next to Chad as far as putting implementation of vision in process. But the Next Steps process is everything from a person starting to attend the church all the way through the point where they may step into full-time ministry at some point in
Mm.
time. So it's a wide range of connection and next steps for people. And so we have a lot of different people coming across our purview who know Christ. Some of them don't know Christ, have no concept of God at all, to those who sense a call of God to ministry. So it's a wide gamut of connecting people. And it's fun to watch them grow in their relationship with God, follow a process, very process driven. People don't like necessarily be in a process. They may not know they're in a process, but we know they're in a process. And the assessment of that, helping them connect and find the next step for them is the joy that I get to facilitate.
Loves
Mm.
that. What a great job. As you present it, everybody wants to do that now. Like, how do we help people take their next step in faith and life and
Yeah,
ministry? Yeah.
yeah.
So let me ask you this. You were an early adapter, I think, as far as putting this into this. The people that have been listening to the podcast the last couple of weeks have heard we ask
Hmm.
those questions. What's your passion? What's your pain? What's your proficiency? Where do those circles overlap?
Right.
And when did you first come across those thoughts? And what was your, there are a lot of people that are hearing this for the first time. Kind of join
Right.
them there. What was your first impression? Why this? Why did you choose these thoughts to use as tools of discipleship in your church?
That's a great question. Actually, you came to speak in our section a long time ago. I don't even think the book was in print yet.
Yeah, I
And
had
this was in
hair.
its
Yeah.
development stage, and it resonated with us. And then we did some additional work with you, and we had you come back for the church. And then the book came out, and you spoke in our Northeast section pastors meeting. And it's just like when I heard it again, really refined to where it is now, it just resonated with me that this is something that everyone on staff needs to know
Yeah.
and needs to walk in. And then really it's a tool that anyone who is a follower of Christ can use as a wonderful witnessing tool to develop conversations with people who are living far from God. It's a witnessing tool. It's an evangelism tool.
Yeah.
It's really a powerful component to helping people find where their sweet spot is.
Right. I was teaching at a youth camp the other day, and someone said, why are we learning this? And I said, you ever danced with your grandmother? And he said, yeah. I said, is she kind of a robust gal? He goes, oh yeah, she's huge. I said, you don't know where to put your hands, right? He goes, no, I didn't know where to put my hands. I said, like grandmas don't come with handles. You've got this weighty thing you want to dance with, and there's no place to grab onto it. And these three questions,
wow,
how to put some handles on grandma,
I've never thought of it in that light, but I guess that could be that way.
I don't think anybody's ever thought of it that way.
I don't think so.
The things you can say in youth ministry, you probably shouldn't say elsewhere. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I get it.
So the next question I guess that we would have is, that you've got the inspiration now, but now there's an application, right?
Yeah.
Like I can see this, but now you got to integrate it. You got altar workers, you got youth workers, you got people that are helping people through grief and addiction, and you got to get this woven into the DNA, into the language, into the culture of the church. Could you speak to that, Jim? Because that's not that isn't like I had a good sermon or even a good sermon series. That's a much more in-depth, comprehensive effort. So tell us about that effort.
Well, it doesn't start overnight. It has to be really intentional. It doesn't start overnight, and you have to decide early on that you want it to be a part of all of the culture, not just an element of it. And keeping that happening is always an ongoing challenge, because the natural morphing of things is to go to what is easy, not what is the most effective.
Yeah, sure.
And we want it to stay that way. And so we were already, like most pastors and leaders in churches, they have some tool that they're using to get people to a point of understanding of their gifts and their passions and those kinds of things. And for decades now, I had used gifting assessments and given gifting assessments out. And then we tried, the goal was you sit down with somebody, listen to their assessment and hear what their giftings are and see that dialogue on screen in front of you, and then have some kind of a dialogue with them that you're going to plug them into ministry somewhere based upon those gifts. And I can tell you from 38 years of ministry and experience, well, if I take this portion out of it, having worked with the why question, I'll probably say 30 years, that never was as effective as this has been. It's a tool, but helping people find that sweet spot, really where their passions and their proficiency and their pain is, that's really where the core of it is. Adding to that, a gifting assessment is just another way of even refining it further, which is wonderful. So in implementation side of it, we went in this direction right away and began using this as a tool. I put together a page that gave the correct language to the team members to use in the communication of this. And I felt the language is absolutely critical.
Yes.
Because the way it's written in the book, I mean, it's not from God, but it's inspired by God, and it directly points people in the right way. So using the words that are there really helped get us all speaking the same language. And when staff members then meet with somebody who has expressed an interest in being involved in ministry, and they've gone through our growth track class, a single class that they go to, sitting down with them and having a dialogue with them using the right language was the starting point of that. And then as they decided, I'm interested in an area of ministry, this is where I think I'd like to go, I think this may be my sweet spot, then we have further dialogue about, let's talk about giftings. What are your giftings from a scriptural standpoint? And let's blend those together. And that has been very, very helpful in the connecting of people in a healthy way. The biggest challenge I've had to deal with is we go through staff a lot. I mean, there's just churches do this, they go through staff. There's challenges with that. It's keeping that high level of focus on the why question in the interview process, keeping that at the forefront of everything, rather than just saying, okay, you checked off this box, you're interested in this, here's where you're going to serve. That's not what we want happening. And so that's been the challenge that I deal with always. And we've got 2 new interns, and some of those are doing interviews now. And so there's a process to keeping that at the high level of focus. I hope that answers that question.
And Jim, it does, but it kind of, there's a couple things you said that really captured my attention. You said you want to start with the staff first. And And I think that's brilliant. Because this kind of stuff goes downhill in my mind.
Yeah.
It starts with even if you're a larger church, and you have an executive team, it starts with the executive team. It starts with me walking myself through those three circles and the questions and being able to articulate it for my own self. I think this is true. And then we push it down to the staff level. And you said the staff needs to know it cold. We want common language. And then from there, I think we can cascade it down through the organization. So I love that part of it. And then you said, and this is actually just kind of the next logical step. You talked about, hey, it's not just a portion of our church that does this. This is part of the culture now. This is this is a whole church, whole culture effort. And I think that's a significant point that we shouldn't miss. Because if this is just simply an add-on, to all the other different things you're trying, I'm not it's not going to go any further than the staff. I think churches will be disappointed with the outcomes. I mean, am I being too strong about that or too simplistic about that, Jim? What do you think about that thought?
I don't think so. If you're asking this, Jim, I don't think it is that way. I think you really have to, it has to come from the leader who says, this is the direction we're going, and we want to keep it at that level. I mean, it's like the game of telephone. By the time it gets to the end of the line, the quality of it is very broken up. And so returning to it regularly and rehearsing that and having dialogue with that regularly keeps it at the forefront. Inspecting what you expect. That's my role in this process. And it's a daunting task, just that one element of it, to keep everybody at that level of focus.
It might be good just to kind of take a minute and say a little bit more about the demographics of where you are. Tell us a little bit about your community, the church, and then really, I think the extraordinary part of this is the volunteer base that has come out of this in your church. Tell us about that, Jim.
Yeah. So our community, 2,500 to 3,000 people, depending on which demographic you're looking at, of the actual West Branch area. And then the surrounding rural area around it will probably bring 10,000 people into the area. Our church pulls from 45 to 50 miles away on any given Sunday. We're an abnormality in the northern part of Michigan. In our section, we're an abnormality. The church runs between 600 and 800 people that are tying in on a Sunday, on a weekend. That includes our online audience. And our online audience, we're very, very conservative in that. They have to be tied in between 20 and 30 minutes of watching a service before we even consider them as online. But on any given Sunday, 500 people between the three services. Most of the time it's more than that, but I'm just being conservative. And it's a very conservative community. And our church has been, it started out very small with 15, 18 people in a little brown building 20 some years ago. And the vision has been to move from that point on. And it's really, it's blessed of God. God's doing this. These are tools that we're using, but he is blessing our efforts in that. And that's the focus of that.
And now your volunteer base, right? You talk about your growth track, the one class that happens in the middle. You have three services. The middle service has every week this growth track. You cannot become a member, right? You can't serve until you've been through this. And tell us about the number now of you got a church, a congregation of 500 to 800 people on a Sunday attending. How many people are on your list of people serving in their gifts, in their calling, and their passion, pain, proficiency as an expression in your congregation?
Conservatively, 225 people in our church are serving in ministry right now. It's amazing. It's amazing. In some aspect of ministry, they're serving in that. And part of the growth track, like I said before, the growth track takes from the point of people attending all the way through. It's a long process. So we require of everyone who gets involved in ministry, wants to be involved from the point of attending the services, they want to get involved, they have to go through one class. It meets every third Sunday of the month, so you can sign up for it at any point in time. The class lasts for 1 hour, as mentioned. It's between our two services during the second service. And it allows for people to discover our culture, discover the history of the church, why we do what we do, our language, the culture language, and how to get involved. And it tells them the next step for them in that process. And the next step is to get involved in an area of ministry. And so they check off on a list where they think their interests are. And then those are handed out the next morning in a brief meeting that we have as a staff to all of the department heads. And those department heads follow up on those individuals directly, set up meetings with them, and look for that why question, look for that gifting connections, all of those things happening in that environment. And so that helps them get networked into it. And then I just got an admin hired for myself here in the last 2 weeks. That person now has a follow-up process with them 1 month afterwards. We're just calling them a success manager, so that they're able to really make sure that they may have signed up. They may love doing food in the church, but they happen to have landed in kids ministry doing that, and that's not where they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be in young adults, and so we're there to help tweak that sweet spot for them. So that's kind of the direction of that. On the other side of it, if people are wanting to move further in ministry or going for other directions or step up into a leadership role, the first entry level is serving on a team. And then if you want to step up to a leadership role, then we talk about partnership with them. What does partnership mean? Partnership is not membership. Membership in a church, from a biblical standpoint, it isn't seen anywhere in the New Testament, but you see all over in the New Testament where people are identified as followers of Christ or Christians by their actions, by the fruit of their lives. And so we call them partners. They're linking arms, excuse me, going down in ministry and service rather than up in prestige. I'm a partner, I get to vote. And that also has helped us with a lot of challenges that are out there with LGBTQ. We draw a line there. Anyone can serve who comes through our doors on a team and has to abide by an ethics code. But if you step up to a leadership role, and that's discovered through conversation and dialogue and understanding what their whys are, helping them in that right spot. From that point on, then they step up into partnership, and that requires a code of ethics agreement that we have as staff, and they're at the same level of code of ethics and operation as that group of people.
Love that.
And so, Jim, as you share that, I think some listeners or watchers might feel like, wow, that's an overwhelming process. Or that seems like a lot. It is, it is. But this has been something you and Faith Alive have been building over a period of years.
Yeah. Right.
And so we want to encourage, if you are listening or watching today and you're hearing Jim talk, we wanted to bring him on because we want you to know that we try to do our best to bring you things, bring you ideas that actually work in the real environment. And that's why Jim's here today, is just proof that if you will grab hold of this idea that I'm going to spend more time developing from within and less time fretting about there not being enough help from the outside, and you just get started. That's it's a journey. And Jim, I guess that kind of just begets this question, and I know we're going to butt up against time here pretty soon. It's like, what would you tell a pastor who's hearing us today or watching us today? What would be a good first step from your perspective for them to take, or maybe a couple of next steps?
Oh, wonderful. That's a great question. 2 years ago, our pastor's wife went on a mission to find churches that are doing this well. And at Jim Wiegand's church, there was one of those, and Oaks Church, and there's another one, the name's slipping me right now. But she contacted these people directly and said, tell us what you're doing, send us your resources, let us pull that together. And it was done a massive brainstorming session as to what fits our culture, what doesn't fit our culture. And we literally adapted concepts from other people, other organizations that were doing it well to fit our culture. And I think for a pastor starting out on this, it's good to ask great questions of great churches that are doing it well, and get to the person who organizes this kind of thing and who runs it, and have dialogue with them and bring it back. Don't take it hook, line, and sinker. You got to make it adapt to your culture, take out what works, what doesn't, and start pulling the trigger on things and begin walking out of a lot of this in that first year. It morphed several times. Our class morphed several times. It was, we thought of doing it every week, and that wasn't going to happen. We thought of doing it twice a month, and that wasn't going to happen. We finally boiled it down. People want to come to one single class. And what can we get to happen in that single class? And that was very beneficial for us. There has not been a growth track class a month go by where we have not had people connecting and wanting to be involved in ministry. That is a record. That is a record.
amazing.
That has never been that way in this church or any church I've partnered with and been on staff with. It's phenomenal, the number of people that are connecting. And it's all because they see the process, they see the goal. And when they discover their why, it's like igniting them in the middle of something that's fuel all around it. It all goes up in flames. It's wonderful. It's a very positive thing.
Yeah. Jim, you mentioned to me, and I don't know if you remember this, that the system that you used to try to connect people to a team had a success rate of about 1 in 10.
Yeah.
And that the system you're using now, which includes the 3 circles, the releasing instead of recruiting idea, now it's about 7 out of 10. Did I hear you right? Or was I just
correct. Okay. Everyone who goes through Growth Track lands somewhere in ministry. At what level they determine by their time commitments and their time constraints. We don't have anybody who's gone through Growth Track that isn't involved. They're connected in some way now. That's just amazing to me. It's wonderful, and it's very refreshing to be able to have people coming into the stream. You start the stream, and people will jump into it. It's the beautiful thing. You start that process, and it takes a little while to get traction going. But when you get people coming out of it going, I'm serving where I'm supposed to serve, and I just love what I'm doing, it's really an exciting thing. It doesn't mean everything's perfect, but this process and this transition for people from sitting and observing to being a viable part and involved in ministry and finding their why, it's a beautiful thing. It really is something that I think it's really the way the church is meant to function. It really is.
I love that. That's a great statement. This is the way the church was meant to function. Maybe that's why it works. Because discipleship is not, often we think of evangelism, raise your hand, say the prayer, fill out the card. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's an incomplete sentence. There's more to discipleship than a commitment to follow Christ at an altar of repentance. There's, what did God save you from? But now what do you believe God saved you for? And beginning with that sense of purpose is a big deal. It locks people in because it isn't about me joining your church. It's about you helping me find the person God made me to be, and then being that, which is a great reward. Taking what God invested in you and being good and faithful with it. In some ways, that's the ball game.
We've had people that have come into this that have, we discovered in conversation with them that their ministry spot location wasn't under our roof. It was in another location outside in another ministry. And we directed them that way. And they're still attending, but we're celebrating the fact that they're involved in kingdom work. It's all kingdom. So
it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It's amazing. Well, Jim, I think weekend. But go ahead. You had something, Jim.
Well, no, I was going to say, that Jim Westheim. We have to be very specific now because there's, like we're playing cards. We got Jims are better to open here. So we have this. We have a cohort that Converge has been releasing now. We're just kind of, it wasn't beta testing. It was good and strong, but we have pastors from Virginia, Texas, Pennsylvania, Michigan, all over the United States that have been in this first cohort, and it's been phenomenal. And Jim Westheim came in. He's our first speaker, and we've gone from inspiration now to application. And right now we have churches in Michigan, in Texas, in Virginia, and in Pennsylvania that are all beginning to use this as their core, putting handles on Dancing with Grandma. That's what it is.
I sent out emails like crazy after that last week. They contacted and said, hey, I need the information. And it was just wonderful to be able to share that because it's not original. It's just been tweaked.
Yeah. And I feel like, how do I do this? It's great to be inspired, but you went through a whole process and you did it alone. And what this cohort does is we go through the whole process, but you don't have to go through it alone. Yeah. You go through it with pastors that are from the Baptist background and Brethren background, independent background, Church of God, Assemblies of God. Again, we're doing this. This has become foundational discipleship teaching in Mongolia. The book From Recruiting to Releasing is now being translated into Mongolian and being distributed into the churches as their just fundamental, how do we get started in this Christian walk conversation. So God's doing something wonderful with this. And this next cohort begins September 17th. So I'm not sure the date of the release of this, but if it's before September 17th, please join this. There's only room for about 10 people, so it is limited. It's not expensive, but you get 8 weeks every other Tuesday talking about this with a group of other pastors from around the country or around the world, different veins of Christianity, evangelicalism, and so forth. And it's been wonderful. And man, we would encourage you, if you feel inspired by this, take the next step, go to convergecoach.com. And you want to have a conversation with me about it? I'd love to spend that half hour with you. If you'd like to just sign up for the cohort. John, tell us more about the website. I'm not really familiar with that part, but if they were to go there, what's next?
So it's very simple. It's convergecoach.com/cohorts.
Okay.
Or you can just go to convergecoach.com, and at the navigation bar at the top, there's a tab for cohorts. You can just click there and you will see all the information, dates, times, and the ability to register for the cohort.
Jim,
so it starts in September.
One more thing to this.
Go ahead.
John, no pastor can lead this on his own. You have to have somebody who is dedicated to just champion this thing all the way forward, because it always reverts to the lowest form of excellence if you don't stay on it in front of it. So task somebody with it. It's really critical to make it happen.
Yeah. But the goal is this. The goal is to imagine a future where your altar workers, your greeters, people that work in the nursery, children, clean the building, mow the grass, preach the sermons, all believe that what they're doing because God created them to do it. And they have the satisfaction of being what they were created to be, doing it for the Lord, versus the recruiting method. We need 3 more mammals in the nursery because we can't have that many babies without that many mammals. And you end up with people that are in places they really shouldn't be. They're servant-hearted. They want to be a service to you and to the Lord. But if you ask them for a favor and they do it, you owe them a favor. But if you lead them to who God made them to be, in some ways, you become one of those 5 people that changed their life. So the hours and hours and hours we put into sermon preparation, we should. But man, put time into people. Go ahead, Jim.
Even if you, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but even if you have to do that, where you have to do a recruiting campaign for something, if you have this process in place, you still retain the wonderful process of having them discover their why. If you have a big exodus of people moving out of the area, you still can recruit for a big event or big activity or an area of ministry and still retain the process by them signing up. And now let's go through Growth Track together. So even if you have to do it, it works.
Well, in closing, let me just say this. Jim Westheim, the new cohort begins September 17th. Will you publicly commit to coming back and doing one of those cohort sessions to talk more about this with those who join?
Any way we can help. Any way I can help. Yeah, glad
no
to do
pressure.
It.
No pressure.
Any way we can help. Yeah, I'm learning. They're learning. We're all learning together.
It's such a great thing. Yeah, and thanks, Jim. Thanks, John, for allowing this, because this is my heart. If you talk about my passion, pain, proficiency, it is to pastor Freedom Center Church, but beyond that, it's to help people discover their why and to release them in ways that make them make the most sense. It's a joy to share this message. So, John, do you want to close us out today? That's usually my role, but do you want to do it today?
Yeah. If you're listening or watching today, we want you to know that we love you. We pray for you. We cheer for you. We want the best for you in your personal life and in your professional life as well. And so, as Jim has mentioned, if you need help, convergecoach.com, contact us link. That'll give you 30 minutes with one of our teammates for free. And if we're able to help you in 30 minutes, and that's awesome. And if there's more work required, we're happy to talk about what that might look like. And if we can't help you, God's blessed us with an amazing network of ministries that we're friends with, that we respect, and we'll get you to the right person, the right ministry to help you. So, Pastor, we want you to be encouraged today. There is help for you. In the number one thing that pastors say they need help with is what we're talking about today. And there's actually help for you. So keep at it. Keep putting one foot in front of the other as you continue to lead from alignment.